I couldn't have grown the business 3x during a pandemic without these people who have stepped in to really lend their expertise to things like writing, creative. I've got a video producer who does amazing things with the live shows that I do. And it's a big team effort, but I really appreciate what they do.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to SalesBiz. I appreciate you all taking the time. First off, check out the new studio. Had to upgrade the digs. Go ahead and comment below what you think. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and drop some likes down below if you find value out of this episode. Speaking of this episode, today I have a very special guest. This gal is a marketing expert with years of experience in the SaaS healthcare industries, amongst many others. She is currently the founder and principal of her own business, LuccaZarra Inc., which is action-based marketing, event planning, so many different categories. But I'm going to let her talk about it. Can't wait to have her share insight and her journey. Miss Lisa Martin. Lisa, welcome.
Thanks, Mike. It's so great to see you. It's been a couple years, but look at you. And I'm excited to be the first show in your new studio. Thank you for the privilege.
I appreciate that. Excited to have you. I think it has been like 1.5 years, 2 years already since we worked together at that startup, but we'll definitely get into that later. Lisa, let's talk about you though. First of all, before we get into LuccaZarra, let's talk a little bit about how your journey started in the marketing space, how it all started for Lisa.
It started at NASA. So I know that makes absolutely no sense. If you back that up, I majored in microbiology. I got a master's in molecular biology, and now I'm in marketing and media, and they all start with the letter M. So I think that makes sense. But I got out of sciences when I went to NASA right after grad school. It sounds very strange, but it's true. Working on space biology. I wanted to get out of laboratory stuff and into something that was more globally impactful, other than being a backup dancer for Britney Spears, which did not materialize. And started kind of understanding the sales model of sort of positioning as a grad student. You know, it's all about persuasive selling of this esoteric project that you're working on. And so I spun that into more of a business side on the NASA side. And then when I wanted to get into something that was more extroverted, like sales, I found some guys at HP before it was HPE back in 2005 who took a chance, and I convinced them that my scientific method was going to be a huge help to sales development and marketing, because I understood how to persuade the audience to believe what I'm saying. And 16 years have gone by, and I own my own marketing agency. I've been hosting live streaming shows in technology for 5 years, and here I am on your podcast.
Amazing. So did you always have that passion for marketing, talking to people, getting out there, shaking hands and whatnot? Or is that something you gradually stepped into from a introverted stage of yours earlier on?
Totally. If you can believe it. Yes. Introverted stage earlier on. But I always
Me too. That's why I ask, because
really?
I completely resonate with that. I was a complete shy guy all the way up until
I can't
later
believe
part
that.
of college. Exactly. Right. Believe it.
Yes.
But tell me more. How did it?
Well, I always, it's a very zigzaggy path to where I got here today. And most people that I talk to when I'm interviewing, it's the same thing, which I always find really interesting, but it's so common that it's so hard for people to know when they're 10 or even 18 what they want to do. But I always got in trouble in Catholic school for talking too much. And I thought, see, nobody recognized back in the day, this girl should be in marketing or sales because she can talk and sell, you know, ice to people that are freezing in Texas right now. So I sort of discovered this extroverted side as I got older, and as I got into sales, and just fell in love with meeting people, learning from them, getting involved in different technologies, and expanding my knowledge base, and just absorbing as much as I could from people around me.
Wow, interesting. It's amazing to me how, you know, that kind of effect takes place, the residual effect of you being eventually starting out being introverted, but eventually branching off. I was very shy myself. Never thought I would be the one picking up phone calls and especially calling people that I've never met in my life. It's amazing, but you know, here we are. The evolution definitely makes sense eventually. So tell me a little bit about the educational aspect of it. Were you actually trying to get a degree in marketing, or did you ended up learning things on your own? How did it work?
No, I got my degrees in the life sciences,
Oh, right. That's what you
microbiology,
mentioned there.
molecular biology. And so getting into marketing was just, it wasn't planned at all. In fact, nothing that I've done outside of those 2 degrees was planned. And it
Wow.
all really just unfolded as I met certain people and started to explore what does really interest me. And I didn't want to be in the sciences per se in a laboratory setting. I didn't feel that it was really, I think it was conflicting with that emerging extrovert that was starting to come through. But what I learned from my science days, many years of science training, is that it's the scientific method. It has applicability in so many facets of life, sales and marketing being one of them. Especially nowadays with marketing being such a scientifically driven discipline. We have so much data that we can utilize to make real-time decisions, insights, and actions and influence customer behavior because of the data. It's very scientific. So I just sort of, as the years went on, just sort of found that natural extension of my education and how it sort of morphed into the marketing and the media that I do now.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive into the actual entrepreneurship aspect of it, Lisa. You definitely wanted to branch out from the health sciences, but then starting a business, completely different beast. First of all, what inspired you to do something like that? Because as we all know, 9 out of 10, if not more, fail.
Another funny story. I was run over by a car. True story. And while in a crosswalk, so I did have the legal right of way.
I'm
And it was
glad
a
you're
bad,
okay.
thank you, big accident 8 years ago. And it really just sort of shook me. And I thought, you know what,
Wow.
here I am in this rat race working for a great but enterprise company with lots of people, lots of marketing heads. And I thought, I want to maybe take a step back and design a lifestyle and a business that I think really fits who I am. So I took a sabbatical and I really kind of thought, what do I do? What do I want to do? What are some of the freedoms that I want in my personal life? And had no idea what I was doing. Decided to start a business and went on LinkedIn. It's all about the network, Mike, as you well know, and said to some previous colleagues that actually it was a person that wanted to hire me at a tech company that I turned down that gave me my first contract 7 years ago now
Wow.
with LuccaZarra. Yeah, and that turned into a huge opportunity where we actually ended up growing the business over about 4 years by 3x unplanned.
Wow.
And then I kind of realized I'm not doing this consulting thing the right way. I had all my eggs in one basket and thought, okay, I need to make some changes. I need to understand better how to position my services and my offerings, but I also need to make sure that I've got, you know, my hands in different areas so that as a business owner, someone who has to provide their own health insurance, that I had some coverage and a solid basis for growing the business.
Yeah. Well, first off, I'm sorry that happened. I mean, obviously, it had some great residual effects of you having the grit to start your own business, but being run over a car, wow, that's pretty intense. It's funny though how I guess it's not that funny, but it's interesting how a near-death experience so really drives that risk-taking ability of yours quite up. Whether it's a traumatic experience that happened to somewhere physically hurt like yourself, do you feel like at that point it was kind of like, I got nothing to lose at this time? You know, if I survive this,
Yeah.
why can't I survive that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I just thought if it fails, I'll go back to being an employee. I had,
Right.
a great network at the time. It's even better now. And it wasn't with intention of having a team and working with, 5 or 6 different software and tech startups and small enterprises as I do now. It was, I wanted to not be in the rat race. I didn't want to be tied to being so emotionally invested in what my employer was doing. And I found that myself and a lot of my friends and colleagues, and you might even be the same, you get so invested into what you're doing and you take it so personally. And I wanted to have an abstraction from that. And that is the one thing I tell anybody if they're thinking about starting their own business, whether it's consulting or whatnot, that's the one thing that you're probably going to find that you get is that separation because your focus shifts rather, and you want to deliver what the client wants, what's best for them. And maybe your brilliant idea that you thought wasn't so much best for them. That's okay. You disassociate yourself with that emotional connection and really focus on how do I meet my clients' needs? Actually, how do I exceed their expectations? And you get that kind of liberating experience where you're proud of the work you do, you're excited to help your clients, but you also are really focused on what's best for them.
Yeah, no question. What about, let's talk a little bit about the management side of it, Lisa. Everyone likes starting their own business, but not everyone likes to manage people with their business. How did you develop that skill set, or I guess that mindset to say, okay, I could actually hand off portions of this day to day to another person and trust them?
That took me some time, to be honest with you. As I grew the business in the last probably 3 or 4 years, I was doing everything, and it was exhausting. And I also do media work for a company called SiliconANGLE Media, which is based in Palo Alto and Boston. And we go all over the globe to tech events, and we broadcast live. We interview tech execs all day long. And so I was trying to do that at the same time. I'd go back to the hotel room at night, write customer stories for clients, and I thought I need to be able to offload some of the things that somebody's probably better at than I am. But selfishly, I wanted to focus on the things that I enjoy the most, which is things like this, interviewing customers, and really where I feel like I have the most energy. And what I've learned over time, I've managed people in previous roles as an FTE for other companies, but what I do now is I've hired for the skills that I want the company to have. And for example, I have a team of writers. My biggest asset to a company is how I interview customers. I know how to ask the right questions to extract the value. I can get your customer to articulate your value prop in their voice because I know how to dig and just pick away a little bit in a friendly way. And now I have writers that I just say, okay, I want you to listen to how I conduct this interview, take this transcript and write this great story. And in the beginning, it's extra work because you're teaching and you're training them this is what my clients expect me to deliver. This is what I've been delivering. I want you to deliver this now so that I can do more of this other type of work. And so it's really been about understanding the upfront investment that you need to put in to making this team work well and treating the people that you're working with. I've got a team now that's all over the globe, treating them as they're part of the family and being thankful for how much value they're helping to add to the business. I couldn't have grown the business 3x during a pandemic without these people who have stepped in to really lend their expertise to things like writing, creative. I've got a video producer who does amazing things with the live shows that I do. And it's a big team effort, but I really appreciate what they do.
Yeah. It sounds like outside of just your experience and everything else that's happened, you've adopted a lot of humility in terms of how to not just be a leader, but how to lead by example. And it sounds like the way I would completely echo what you say. Treat the way you want to be treated. I feel like we all just want, a little bit of our own self. And it seems like you're really embodying not just through your eyes, but through your employees' eyes. So kudos to you. What about on the sale? Go ahead,
I was
please.
going to say another thing that's important is especially when you're growing a team is to recognize the value that the others are contributing, and recognize where they might have ideas that you hadn't thought of that might take something, an asset that you deliver or a service that you deliver to the next level. So I think that's where that humility comes into play. Like, I don't know everything, and I've scratched the surface, but there's other people who've been through different experiences, whether they're professional or personal, that can probably impact me personally and professionally and help my business deliver better services to the clients that we work with.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the number one humility is knowing that you don't know everything. I mean, the second someone actually says that, I immediately kind of keep my distance. That level of arrogance, that's what buries companies, not grows them. Completely agree with you there, Lisa. So sales side, no one knows sales better than the marketing professionals out there, but it still takes that level of closing a deal. How did you manage to, you're obviously had the drive and the motivation to start the business, but in terms of landing those deals, what kind of process did you establish to get fill in that pipeline?
A very zigzaggy process in the beginning because you don't really know what to do. Like I said, I started the business and I had all my eggs in one basket for nearly 4 years. And so when that contract came to an end, I had to figure it out. And so it was a matter of figuring out what's the appetite in the market for something like what I deliver. Can I actually make a business out of customer marketing? The answer has been yes. And it was trial and error, trying to determine, how do I position this as a value add? What's in it for these tech startups to work and outsource talking to their valued customers to somebody like me? And I always thought, I'm going to count the number of contracts that I didn't get, where they didn't understand what I was doing. So I wasn't representing it properly, or CMOs were thinking that I was a CMO in training, which also isn't true. And what I really leaned on, honestly, is my network, and thought, how do I become a really reliable, consistent piece of a quarterly budget for a tech startup or a small enterprise? It's about being consistent, knowing exactly what you can do and how you can make an impact, and then showing them the numbers. This is what I've done for client A, B, and C in this amount of time. This is what we can do for you.
Yeah, absolutely. When it comes to sales, it's all about the numbers, right? What kind of ROI you're bringing, what have you done to earn this business? So no, I completely understand.
Exactly.
So 7 years now in, LuccaZarra obviously is growing. And you mentioned that, unfortunately under current circumstances, and you also felt bad about it, sympathetic in terms of, although this tragedy is happening out there, the business has grown, the need has grown. How are you scaling that need, and what pivots have you taken as an organization to make sure that you're staying in the green?
One of the things I've always been good at is self-motivation. Although I will say it's been hard during COVID, when you're literally working from home or living at work. I spend way too much time in this room. But one of the things is just understanding that I can do anything that I need to do for a client wherever I am. So I knew that that was going to be something that I could deliver. It didn't matter if I was stuck at home. But I also thought, what are the things that I like to do and where can I add value? And one of the areas besides marketing that became an interesting kind of an expansion of my media career is helping clients tell their stories and connect to their audiences, their customers, their partners, virtually through virtual events, where suddenly you're used to being at big events and having such great networking opportunities and educational opportunities, and now you're at home and you've got all these distractions, people with kids and spouses working from home, sharing bandwidth, dogs barking in the background. How can we help our clients deliver their messages in a way that is educational, informative, but also personal? And that's been an area where I've also been able to do a lot more on the virtual MC keynote hosting side, is being able to pull someone into a conversation through a webcam. Not so easy to do, but we found a lot of opportunities there. And it's something that is probably my favorite thing that I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we were just telling you, I started the podcast last year, and I had no idea the explosive, how popular it would get. Not my podcast specifically, but podcasting in general. I feel like everyone's popping up. So I started a podcast in the most competitive time possible. But hey, we're still alive and kicking and screaming here. What about from a growth standpoint? Do you plan on bringing on more employees? It seems like everyone's working from remotely these days. And tell me a little bit about, we talked a little bit about accountability earlier, but what about, how has that changed your perspective from a management standpoint now that everything is work from home?
Yeah, and I have a writer in the East Coast. I have a writer in London. My video producer is local to the Bay Area, as is my creative director. But we're going to be bringing on some other roles to be able to offer more robust customer marketing services specifically to clients. And I think the way to scale that is to hire for what are our core competencies. One of the things that I recently did, and in case you're wondering, LuccaZarra, what the heck is that? Luca and Zara were my dogs. I still have Zara. Luca's gone, but so that's where the name of the company came from, was my dogs. I now have Ella, who's snoring behind me here, who didn't get any naming rights, but that's okay, maybe with some services. But in terms of scaling it, it's really about going, all right, let's really focus on the maybe the three things that we want to do really well, not boiling the ocean. And that's really what marketing should be, keeping things simple. People should understand what you do. So one of the things that I just did that was not necessary, but I felt that I wanted their brand represented in a way that revealed simplicity, is which I changed the logo. I had created this logo 7 years ago and got all creative and funky with it because I thought, it's got to be bright and it's got to be
Why
different
not?
because I'm in marketing. It can't be Martin marketing. That's boring. And I looked at it recently as I've grown the company in the last year and thought, it doesn't reflect what I want it to reflect. That is, we create processes that are simple, repeatable, and scalable. That's how we win business. And that's how we make our clients impactful. I was talking with a prospective client just maybe a month or two ago, and I described the process that we do for capturing the voice of the customer. And she literally said to me, that sounds ridiculously simple. And I went, yeah, that's it. That's the whole point. Keep it simple, keep it scalable and repeatable, and deliver. But to your point, that accountability is really key. And it's been hard emotionally, mentally during COVID to have that accountability all driven by self. But now with the team, I have accountability to them. I need to enable them. I need to give them the resources and access to what they need to do the job that I hired them to do. So having that sort of bi-directional accountability now has made things even better, and it's made growing the business, I won't say easier, but it's opened up more doors.
Yeah. A lot of doors from an innovation standpoint. We talked about pivots. So it sounds like you're scaling it accordingly. It's definitely been a transition for me. I'll tell you, I'm that guy that liked to be out in the happy hours, conferences, traveling,
Ditto.
networking, of course. So being cooped up in an office, I mean, whatever improvements I could make, it's still, four walls. Social media, Lisa, let's talk a little bit about that. I feel like there's one popping up every week now. I'm surprised how fast TikTok exploded. Now I just watched a documentary on OnlyFans. There's things popping up left and right. How has that changed the marketing game, and where do you see those pivots, going in the next 5 or maybe 10 years?
Yep. A lot of options. And that's the one thing that's probably not going to change. I think we can continue to expect explosions in social media and different outlets for people to communicate, different media in which they can express who they are, who their brand is. The most important thing from a marketing perspective, though, is you want to understand your audience. For example, some of my clients have a very technical audience on LinkedIn, whereas the majority of them on LinkedIn are more IT business professionals. And so really, if we're going to create content or we're going to do shows, that I was just hosting a show this morning, we need to make sure that our client understands their audience and we understand the audience. Is Facebook is Clubhouse the right tool? Who do we engage on Twitter? It's really ensuring that you understand who you're talking to and where those people go digitally for information.
Yeah. I mean, some of these, Reddit, I don't own a Reddit. I deleted my Twitter a long time ago, so it just makes me mad. My Instagram, it started booming, but then I got fake followers out of nowhere. So it just kind of keeps going in different directions. Now I'm heavily focusing on YouTube and LinkedIn. I don't know what's going to happen in the next 2 years or where I'll take this podcast eventually, but I will tell you one thing, it's overwhelming. And I've had a bunch of marketing agencies approach me from so many different avenues of we could promote it this way, that way. It's overwhelming to actually know what the right thing is, whether it's legit or not. So, how do you, what is your specific secret sauce? Because they all had their own little pitches, but I know for a fact you're a credible agency because full transparency, folks, Lisa and I are former colleagues for a startup a long time ago, not too long ago. What am I saying? But what is the secret sauce, Lisa, for you, LuccaZarra specifically, that you start approaching with customers with first?
It's really reputation and it's network. Like I said a minute ago, keeping things simple. This is how we do customer marketing strategy. This is how we do communications and narrative strategy. This is how we create media interviews. This is how we interview C-levels for a keynote. And we keep things really simple but consistent. That's the most important thing in terms of winning business. Leveraging social networks, I really leverage it through my clients because it depends on, I'm trying to help them reach their audience with, say, the voices of their customer that validates their brand and their value prop. And so we need to make sure we know where their audience goes. Facebook is not a tool that I genuinely use with any of my clients to push out content, because it's not where that audience, a biz and a tech audience, goes to consume content. But we've also pivoted towards doing, like your grandfather's webinar, by the way, is dead. For companies that are still doing webinars where it's a voice talking to slides, you have to stop doing that. We're now changing it for clients where we're using streaming technology. And it's really like a TV show that we're producing on the back end. So it's people talking, having a conversation, slides pop up here and there to add context. But what we now have to do, since we are stuck at home and we can't have those, fun, interactive conversations and meetings that I know you miss, I miss them too. We have to be engaging, staring into a webcam, which is not easy to do. It's not everyone's forte, but it's essential in order to get people to listen to your message. Because like you said, you started your podcast in a time where podcast was exploding. Same thing with virtual events for any type of company, not just a tech company.
Right.
You're competing for share of voice and people's attention span when they've got phones and kids and families running around while they're trying to pay attention to multiple things at the same time. So it's really about that dedicated focus, know what you deliver, but do it in an engaging, kind of an emotional, personalized way.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like we're headed in a good direction. I'm in no way, shape, or form a medical professional, but from everything, all the research I'm seeing, it seems like we're slowly coming back to whatever is normal these days. But I feel like a lot of that work from home is going to stay for a lot of people. Are you getting that feeling as well in terms of
I am.
the stay-at-home moms and dads are going to have enjoyed this lifestyle a little too much?
Well, I don't have kids, and I'm actually lucky in that sense, because even on the days where I don't feel as productive, at least I don't have to worry about homeschooling and that sort of thing. All I have to worry about is my dog's barking when I'm filming something live, which does happen every now and then. But from what I'm hearing from most of my clients, there's going to be a good amount of permanence of the work from home, which honestly, I hate to hear it. I am so ready to get out of these walls of my house. Even when I go to Starbucks, I talk to everybody and they probably go, "Oh, you live alone, don't you?" Yeah, I live with dogs. That interaction, you can't replace it with Zoom and technologies like that. They're great. But, for example, when you and I work together, I might bump into you on a Tuesday. "Oh, Mike, hey, we were talking about," you see someone, it reminds you of something either you forgot to do, or it sparks an idea for something that you should do together to help the business. Those things don't happen virtually. And that's the one thing that I hope companies create a balance of the work from home, especially for people in the Bay Area who have very long commutes, but allow people to be in the office safely so that collaboration that can happen, that just doesn't happen on Slack and it doesn't happen through Zoom. So I would be happy even with one day a week to be able to go into an office and have a normal traditional work day. I think that alone would be huge in terms of where we are now.
Yeah, no question. And I can pull in. I hear you wholeheartedly with respect to people are going to get completely used to this process. My thing is with me in sales specifically, I feel like a lot of trust is built when you're in person, not through a camera. The body language, the tones, you pick up on a lot of that, whether they're excited or disappointed. So I feel like that level of relationship building is going to slowly deteriorate as we continue staying at home in our pajamas, having these calls, topside looking good. Do you feel like the sales game is going to change in any way? I mean, I know marketing is a huge component of sales, but what about the going out and flying and meeting customers? Do you feel like that's going to get slowly decline as well?
I hope not. I mean, obviously it's come to a standstill, but I will tell you that one of the things, like I worked from home often when I'm not traveling, and I'm normally traveling a ton during the year. And so when I worked from home pre-COVID, I wouldn't turn on my camera to do a Zoom call because it was a work from home day. And so, troll hair, pineapple on top of the head. And now I started doing it early on. I thought I cannot work in sweats. I just don't feel professional enough. I need to do something to sort of replicate what I would do if I was actually going out the front door. Right. But what I found was turning on the camera in the beginning when people were not doing it gave people a glimpse into, this is my home office. And people would ask me, why is there a hard hat there? And it
I was
would
going to
kind of
ask you about
evoke,
that earlier, actually.
yeah, and I'll tell you a personal story. Or I would notice something in a background of somebody that I was talking to that I'd never met, could have been anywhere in the world. And I said, tell me about that jersey that you've got framed back there. And that, to your point about trust, I've noticed doors opening much faster with clients because we're doing everything remotely. We're not able to go on location and film customer testimonials that we would do on site or at events. But turning on the camera, I noticed early on, just sort of was a little bit of a vulnerability. I was showing people, where I was, what I was doing, what was back here. And I found that people started opening up to that. It's also been a time where I've built very strong and trusted relationships with the sales executives at my clients, because it's through them that I get access to my clients' customers to capture their testimonials. Well, the sales guys and girls, as you know, when you and I work together, you own that relationship. And so I want to be an extension of the trust that you built. And we've actually been able to do that through Zoom and technologies like this. Although I really do hope that we get back to some healthy balance of in person, because again, there are certain things that you just can't accomplish with Zoom. But it actually got me a lot farther this last year than I would have thought before.
Yeah, no question. And I hate to say it is a little cliche with the "we're in this together." When they said that, it does make sense, but at the same time, it does seem a little cheesy. But I will say that every Zoom call I've had, I have two dogs as well. Opie, and I got another one bigger now,
Oh,
Harley.
Opie, yes.
Still a monster. He's the Harley's actually 100 pounds, 5 times big as Opie, but Opie's the lab one, believe it or not. But you're absolutely right. On these sales calls, talking to multi-billion-dollar organizations, and they hear a dog barking, I turn bright red, and they say, don't even worry about it. Might pop off any second. It does build a little bit of that trust, and does give you this little bit of relief. Like, you forget sometimes that we're all in this together in a way, but we all have our own challenges in the process.
It is. And it's actually, I was doing a live show this morning on LinkedIn. I host a couple of LinkedIn live shows, one for Druva every other Wednesday and one for Single Store every other Thursday, which we have a show in the morning. And I was interviewing a gentleman from AWS, and in walks his dog as I'm introducing him into the segment. And I just, of course, I fell in love with that because dogs, one. And two, it's just, this is what's happening right now. And we're all dealing with it. And it's now almost kind of, it's sadly, it's the norm, but it just gives you a little bit of a peek into the human side of this person, whoever it is that you're talking to. I think that alone has opened up a lot of opportunities. Like I said, I would never have thought that before. I would never be on camera if it was a work from home day, or if I was traveling in airports and at hotels and that sort of thing. I would just be listening in to participate by voice. But I've seen a big impact. In fact, a customer that I interviewed the Los Angeles Football Club last Friday, I noticed an Isle of Man TT poster behind him. And I know a bit about motorsport. And he couldn't believe that first of all, that I knew, girl from California, knew what the TT was. And he sent me a note on LinkedIn later that said, I feel like we know each other forever. So little things like that can go such a long way to just endearing yourself. Maybe that's the extrovert that is literally trying to pop through the screen. Not sure, but it could be.
Please shake my hand.
Yes. Can we please have a high five?
Good times. What about anything else, Lisa, venture-wise? LuccaZarra is obviously taking up a lot of your time, but what do you do for fun? I mean, you clearly have a lot of fun with what you do, but what else is there outside? Any other ventures? Anything else you're working on in these crazy times?
I've been a fitness instructor for 21 years, and so that's now done via Zoom from my basement. And that was something that I started doing with just my girlfriends that used to come to my classes, so that we could help each other stay accountable in this time when you just wanted to, in the beginning, wanted to stay in your sweats and eat fast food to help support local business and that sort of thing. So that's one of the things that helps me start my day, is by doing a class, having some fun music downstairs in my basement. But nowadays it's literally walking the dogs. It's hanging out with my neighbors, just trying to do my part to, help slow the spread. But I do find myself going out to Starbucks as often as I can. I think I've contributed more to their growth this last year than I should have, because like at least you get to go out and you get to say hi to people and they know your name and that sort of thing. So I have gotten to hosting socially distant parties in my backyard. I've got a big table for 10. So I'm fortunate to have everybody can be 6 feet apart back there and still be social. But it's certainly not the year that I think any of us ever expected. I am, like you, hopeful that we're turning a corner in a big way and looking forward to some sort of normalcy returning. And I really hope that in the tech industry that companies find a balance between the work from home, obviously enabling them to save money and logistics and things like that, but also enabling people to be together, to communicate and collaborate and come up with ideas that they might not be able to do over, SaaS technology.
Absolutely. No question. And last question for you, Lisa. This is my favorite that I always ask the majority of my guests. I'm actually curious to know what you'd say. If Lisa Martin had the keys to the DeLorean with Doc Brown and took a trip back to seeing her 18-year-old self, what would a little younger Lisa Martin, I don't want to say older, more experienced Lisa Martin tell to younger
Wiser.
Lisa Martin?
Good question. Oh, she'd say, first of all, at 18, when I really thought I had a calling to be a news anchor and I was too scared to do it, I would have said, go for it. With that said, I wouldn't change any of the paths that I've been on to get to where I am, because it's been something I love what I do. But I think I would say to her, be honest. You will never know everything, and be the first one to raise your hand in a meeting if there is something that you do not understand, because I guarantee you that half that room, if not more, didn't understand it either. Be the first one to raise your hand, ask the question, get clarity, stand out, and don't worry about what other people think of you. It's none of your business.
That's actually my favorite. You said it right there. When you stop worrying about what other people think, I feel like your life is so much easier and there's so much more possibilities. 100% agree.
Yeah,
Lisa,
often that
thank
happens
you.
when you hit 40 and you're like, wow, I'm so liberated. But go back to your 18-year-old self and tell, your younger counterparts that as well. It's let go of that, because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Lisa, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate you joining us. You're clearly crushing it out there. Really excited to see what happens for LuccaZarra and your entire career moving forward. And please don't forget to stay in touch.
Likewise, it was great to see you. We got to work together again. We were a good team with customer stories. Let's do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to connect on that sales biz time. Thanks so much, Lisa.